Welcome to the King Connections podcast. I'm your host, King, and I'm happy to have as my guest today joining the podcast is Randi-Lee Bowslaugh. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Bowslaugh, yep.
How you doing today, Randy-Lee?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Well, I want to thank you for your investment of time and energy in joining the podcast today. Looking forward to learning more about you. I know you have a very interesting background. Haven't met anyone before with some of your unique skill sets and experiences. So definitely looking forward to getting into that. One of the first questions I'd like to ask before we begin is, what's your spiritual energy number? And what I mean by that is today being zero, life sucks, to 10 being life is awesome. So what would you say you fit in that spectrum?
As of right now, I'm gonna say 8.
And hey, great, great. I like when people say seven or higher. That to me is everything is energy, as you know. And when you're at that energy level, then we can definitely have a great podcast and a great interview. So thank you for indulging me with that question.
Of course.
So my first question I like to begin by, when I find people like yourself who have achieved some great things in your life, author of books, as well as other accolades you've achieved, I'm always curious to know, what do you see as your purpose in life?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I think my purpose in life is to be loud. And I say that because um, to just bring awareness to mental health, to other kind of invisible disabilities, um, because I'm not scared to be loud. So I think that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Excellent, excellent. Another question that I think that I like to ask folks who kind of live with a higher purpose, who see themselves as a leader, trailblazer, things that people that make things happen, is, how would you define a conscious leader in your mind?
I think a conscious leader has to be willing to admit when they're wrong or admit when they have no idea what they're doing. And there's lots of days I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to keep doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. What are you most grateful for in your life?
Um, to just have people in my life that understand me. It hasn't been easy to find them, but now that I have, I'm like, oh, this is great. I understand what actual real friendships are. Cool.
I'm a strong advocate behind finding your tribe and connecting with your tribe, and those are the people you should spend most of your time with.
Yep.
You get
Life's too short to spend it with people who don't get you or who you have to pretend to be somebody else for.
absolutely, absolutely. So, what inspired you to become an author?
So it was my first coping strategy when I was about 14 and I was going through depression. I was writing poems. And then when I was in my 20s, we were cleaning out the basement. One of our grandparents had passed away. And we were cleaning the basement. I found my stack of poems that I had written. I was like, oh, these are pretty good. I won't throw them out, but I don't want them to sit here. So really, it was just I was inspired to throw them into a book and see what happened. And I was only going to write that one because I didn't want to throw them out. But I had so much fun doing it that I was like, ah, I'm going to keep going.
Okay, I can understand that. I can relate to that. I wrote poems when I was younger, but I can't find a notebook I wrote those in. So,
Yep. I didn't think I still had them, but apparently I did. And thank goodness for that.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, you mentioned, and when I did my research on you, and you mentioned earlier in your earlier answer as well, about the importance of mental health. And I'm just curious, why is mental health so important to you?
Well, I've been dealing with it for 20 something years.
Hmm.
And so, just from a personal perspective, I mean, I've been dealing with it, so it's important. But also, as a parent, my kid has tried to kill himself on multiple occasions,
Hmm.
and so it's important to me to start talking about it. So it was about 7 years ago, I think, maybe six. Anyways, a few
Hmm.
years ago, and one night he was crying and he was saying, "Why am I so different? Why doesn't anybody like me? I should just die. Nobody likes me anyways." I think
Mm,
there was a lot of bullying going on at school. So I stopped and I thought to myself, I was like, am I not sharing enough of what I've been through and my mental health so that he doesn't understand this? Like, he doesn't have to go through this by himself. There are different things that we can do or we can learn as coping strategies. And there's definitely going to be people that aren't going to like you, but there's going to be people that do like you. Um, and so in that moment, I realized that I needed to get loud, go back to that word of loud,
mm.
and start making it a place in a world where he can just be who he is and not have to worry about everybody else, and know that it's okay when you're having a bad day. Because I think before that, I made it seem like everything was perfect with mom. Things were great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, how old is your son? You don't mind me asking?
15 now.
Hmm. Okay. So, is he doing better now?
Much better. Yeah. Um, He is so where I live, you have to turn 16 and you get your first beginner's license. So that's coming up very soon. Scary. And he's doing very well in high school. And he actually has just started his own business and has a
Hmm.
Kickstarter going, trying to help raise money. Because the Bank of Mom already paid for a bunch of stuff. So the Bank of Mom is closed.
I can definitely understand that. Definitely understand that. Now, here's something I would just really found interesting because I don't believe I've actually ever met someone who actually has this accolade. So, my question is, how did it feel to win the Canadian National Kickboxing Championship in 2015?
It was awesome. So after I had won it, I ran over and I gave my husband a big hug and I was like jumping up and down. They're like, Randy, you have to go see the doctor now. He has to like check you out before you can walk away from the ring. I'm like, oh, right, right. And I went back because I was just so excited for it, that I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I was so excited. It was so much fun.
So, what got you into kickboxing? I'm curious.
When my kid was 5, we put him into jiu-jitsu.
Hmm.
And while his class was going on, there was an adult fitness class, cardio kickboxing class going on in like the back corner. And there was these 2 girls there. And I said to my husband, they have really nice butts. I want to have a really nice butt. So I joined. Turns out they were runners, and that's actually where they got the butt from. But anyway, so if you're looking for a really nice butt, not kickboxing, it's running. But so I joined, and I was like, this is so much fun. So from the cardio class, I went and I did the regular Muay Thai class, and then from there, I was like, I want to try and hit somebody for real, like in the ring.
And how was that experience?
It was
Your first match.
my first match. Oh, I lost horribly. It was awesome though. So my first match wasn't actually supposed to happen. We got to this um it's called a card. So a card is basically a show where they match up the 2 fighters and it's just a fun night of just watching fights happen. Often what you'll see more on TV. Whereas a tournament where I won the kickbox championship, a tournament is you don't know who you're matched up with. You're just in the weight class and everything. And so you're matched with random people. So I was matched with this girl. It was my first fight, but then she wasn't there. And so I was very disappointed because I wasn't going to fight now. And I, made sure to make weight and I trained real hard. But there was this other girl there that was willing to step in and fight,
Hmm.
except she was an open class fighter. And that means that she had had over 10 fights.
Hmm.
And so it was called an exhibition match because it wasn't not that it wasn't sanctioned, but it wasn't we weren't in the same fight class because she had over 10 and it was my first one. And we were a little bit off on weight, but it because we both agreed to it and they said to her, this is actually her first fight, so don't kill her. So I still got to do it and it was amazing. She was an awesome opponent, very nice. She didn't beat me down, but it was a very cool experience, so different from just sparring and training.
Interesting. Interesting. Do you have a favorite kickbox fighter that you like?
No, not really.
I think about John Claude Van Damme's movies when you think because he had a movie called The Kickboxer, actually, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay. I don't know what.
All right. So shifting back to your writing, I'm curious because again, I'm an aspiring writer, and I know you've written several books. Well, my question I'd like to know is, what was the most difficult challenge you faced when you wrote your first book?
Um, Marketing. I know
Mm,
that it comes after actually writing it, but it really is the marketing side of it. There are so many books out there in the world that how do you reach your audience, the people that are going to like your book? Because I think that there's an audience for basically anything. Um, but in the actual writing process, editing is it's just so tedious.
mm.
It's not fun because when you're actually writing it, it's fun. You get to be creative and you just let your juices flow. But then you have to edit it after. You're like, oh wow, this sentence makes absolutely no sense to anyone but me. So that part sucks.
Okay. Now, what one decision would you say you've made that has made the most significant or has been the most meaningful in your life?
Uh, when I started my YouTube show, the Write or Die Show, um, I've met so many cool people. So on that show, which you can watch on YouTube and listen on podcasts, when
We
I started.
definitely we include the link when we send this out as
Oh,
well.
wonderful. So when I started that show, the concept was to interview other authors and we talked about mental health. And from doing that show, I have met so many really cool people. I've had some of the guests have come back on a second time. I've learned different coping strategies for myself, but I've also made friends. Like I email back and forth with a few of the guests now that I consider friends, and we're every so often we're like, hey, how are you? And we never would have met had it not been for the show.
I definitely see the power in doing this podcast. I meet some great people as well.
Yeah, exactly. You get it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, in my business, I'm in the business of helping conscious leaders to build what we call connectionally intelligent tribes, as well as identify who their strategic partners are and help them to develop work processes to make them more efficient, utilize the systems. And so, in doing that, and even making connections for myself, I'm very strategic about who I connect with. And I have eight characteristics that I've come up with, determine what I'm looking for in a person. Not that they have to have all eight, but some one or two specifically they have to have, such as being growth minded and having a grateful spirit, right? Now, with that being said, I'm always curious to know, do other people have similar characteristics that they look for when someone sends out either a LinkedIn request and want to meet you, or someone wants to introduce you to someone? Do you have certain characteristics you look for before you allow yourself to begin to engage that conversation?
I've never gave it conscious thought before,
Hmm.
but if I did have to stop and think about it, I would say somebody with an open mind for inclusivity. So I'm pretty crazy sometimes, not in a bad way. I don't use crazy in a bad way, but um, I have a lot of quirkiness, let's say. And so if somebody isn't going to be open minded, then I just don't have the time for them. So definitely open-mindedness for being inclusive for everybody. So I have mental health, which sometimes people go, "Oh, that's not real." Yeah, it is. I was diagnosed with autism last year, which explained a lot of my life.
Hmm.
And so a lot of that quirkiness stems from there. So again, open-minded there. My kid is transgender, so again, open-mindedness. I don't have time for people who are gonna say anything. I mean, that's my kid, one way or the other. So um,
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
would say that one thing. I'm sure there's other things. I'd love for people to be fun or humorous or whatever, but really that would be the one trait that would make or break a relationship.
I definitely can understand that and definitely can respect that. So in business, and I'm sure same thing with being an author, you have to have great connections people you build with. And I help my clients identify who's a strategic partner for them that can help them do some things that they necessarily may be a weakness to them, but co-creating can actually bring something forth that's neither one can do individually. So, within that being said, who would be a great strategic partner for you?
Um, Somebody with follow through. Now, not, it sounds bad. It's not that I don't follow through, but sometimes um I get distracted. I like to do multiple things at once. I get distracted. And so somebody that can remind me and refocus me onto the project at hand is super helpful.
Okay, excellent. Now, you mentioned several times about being a mother. I read that in your bio as well. And I'm just curious, what about being a mom do you most enjoy?
Um, hmm, that's a great question. Again, one I haven't ever given real thought to. I guess just being able to raise and mold a small human. Not that he always listens to me, especially now that he's a teenager, but yeah, I would say that.
Okay. Now, you seem to have a very bubbly personality. It's like you're full of energy. And so I'm curious to know when people bring this kind of energy to the podcast and always smiling, that I know for me, I have to go through several rituals in the morning to kind of get myself prepared for the onslaught of negativity that the world throws at you through the news, through different individuals who come at you and bring their negative energy to you. So, what do you do as a morning ritual to kind of prepare yourself to fend off that and still keep you focused and positive and having the energy that you
Breakfast.
have?
For
Okay.
my entire life, I have never skipped breakfast. Like, I could never remember a time that it was not part of my morning at some point. Even when I was fighting, it was my day was awful until I would have breakfast because when you're fighting, a lot of times you don't want to eat until you've weighed in, just in
Hmm.
case. And I was real unpleasant until I ate. So breakfast. Now as an adult, I also um, I walk my dog every morning, which you get some fresh air. It's great, except in the winter. But for the most part, breakfast, walking my dogs, or just waking up without an alarm is also pretty sweet.
Now, I'm curious. Now, in our previous conversation, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my memory serves me correct. You have three dogs and four cats.
Yes, I do.
So I'm just curious to know what made you go and have so many animals.
Well, I've always loved animals, but it definitely wasn't part of the plan. So growing up, I always had cat, um, two cats, and then at one point I had three cats because my brother just randomly brought a cat home, and my mom couldn't say no, get rid of it, so we ended up with three. So, um, when my husband and I got together, I had my one cat still. And then when we moved into the townhouse, we're like, oh, it's big enough and she needs a friend, so let's get another one. And prior to this, my husband was not a cat person. The only experience he had had with cats was that they were evil little monsters that scratched you. Um, but Diamond, my cat I had, she was the snuggliest, most sweet kitty ever, even though she would stare at you like she's going to kill you. And so then we moved into this house. We're like, wow, this is so much bigger. We should get another cat. So we did. Um, and honestly, I don't know how we ended up with the fourth one. I know how we got to three, but the fourth one, I think we were probably just at the mall and um, we were gonna adopt. The cat was much older. He was already 10. His other owners had passed away already. So we're like, oh, nobody's gonna adopt him when there's all these kittens here. Um, and so as different cats have passed away because we've had four for so long that so we go and we adopt another one. It's always through adoption. We always go and oftentimes we adopt the older cats because they aren't the ones that get adopted. So unfortunately, we have had, I think now four pass away on us because of adopting the ones that are already senior cats.
Hmm.
Um, but with the dogs started out with we were just gonna have the one. So the one is a service dog for my son. He has autism. So we raised money and got him a service dog. Then he went back to the training facility where we got him from for like a little boot camp training for a week. And we went to go pick him up. And we were talking to the lady there, the owner, the trainer, and she was talking about this beagle, who people kept returning her because she was barking too loud and she was making clickety clacks. She wasn't a service dog, but she was a dog that was very lovey, good for somebody who didn't qualify medically for a service dog, but wanted a good, cuddly, sweet dog. Um, and her and Freddie, the service dog, were really good friends up there. So we said, okay, fine, we'll take her. Her name is Daphne. And she is the sweetest, cuddliest thing. And so we had the both of them for now 5 years. And just last year we went, oh, Freddie's getting really old. He's going to need to retire soon. He wants to relax in his old age. So we got a puppy who is now almost 10 months old, and he is now bigger than Freddie, who is a lab. And that is how we got to 3.
Okay. I'm curious to know that you walk 2 at the same time, or you walk all 3 at the same time?
Well, right now, because I'm having some health issues, I usually only walk 1 or 2 at a time. When my husband and I go together, then all 3 of them are getting walked. Or if my husband goes by himself, he can walk all 3 at the same time.
Okay. All right. Now, my next question, I'm down to my last 2 questions. And I'm going to kind of set the context for this question. Okay. Is there a kin connection you would like to meet? And what I mean by that, I don't mean necessarily a play on my name or my company name. It's a person I've defined as someone who has achieved a level of success, whether it's personal, professional, career-wise, where you admire them and if you were to meet this person and actually work together, co-create something, you know you could do something magical, something great that can happen from that. And I've developed a methodology and a process for how to connect with individuals of that level. So it could be celebrities or whatever. So I'm not speaking as you meet them and you admire them as a star, as a fan. But again, you're bringing equal value to the conversation and you work together with this person to do something great. Like for me, my example would be Magic Johnson. As a developer, businessman, he's someone that I know if him and I begin to work together, we can make something happen, despite his illustrious basketball career. But working together, I know we can do some great things. So now my question for you would be, who would be a great kin connection that you would like to meet?
That is a really good question. I would love to meet I've never been out of words. Oh my goodness, this is a first. But I'm marking on the calendar. I don't know. Maybe if we're talking celebrities, maybe like Kelly Clarkson, because she's got this really cool talk show that I think would be super fun to do stuff together with. Or maybe like, some artist, like some really cool artist to help do some of my illustrations. My kid does illustrate some of my books, but he takes forever. So maybe somebody that does that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know people's names very well, and so I'm lost for words.
Well, you gave 2 answers there, so that's definitely
That's
suffice.
True, that's true.
And then my last question would be, is there a book you would recommend that has either been A, the most influential in your life, or B, just a book that's been most influential in this past week that you feel that if you were telling our listening audience, this is a book that I think you should definitely read. If you're going to read any books, this book should be read.
Well, any of mine.
Course,
self-promotion.
Absolutely.
But the most influential for me as a parent has been what's it called? The Explosive Child. I think that's what it was called. The Explosive Child by whatever their first name is, last name Green. Again, names, I'm super bad with names, but that book had really helped me. So before my son was actually diagnosed with autism, we just thought he was being a bad kid. We had no idea what to do. We were kind of at our wits' end. And that book really helped me to understand him more and be a better parent. So that is definitely my most influential book.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I want to thank you, Randi-Lee, again for being a guest on King Connections. Again, you brought a lot of energy, some great answers. It's been a wonderful time sitting here with you. And as we begin to wrap things up, I just want to give you an opportunity to share any closing thoughts you may have, as well as contact information where listening audience can get information about your books. You can share your books and where can they actually purchase your books as well.
Yes. So I'm going to say my last thoughts are follow your passion. Even if you're like, I don't have time or I can't make money off of it, that's okay. I'm not saying you have to quit your job.
Mm.
But find what makes you happy and do it, because life is way too short to not do that. And so my website is rbwriting.ca. You can find all of the info about my books on there. They're also all available on Amazon. I got a little bit of something for everybody, mental health and kids books and scary stories. As well, you can find me on Facebook at RB Writing, Instagram at Randy B Writing, and my YouTube channel, The Write or Die Show. And I actually have some new YouTube channels coming up in the next few months that I'm making. So yes, that will be fun. And TikTok. You can find me on TikTok at The Write or Die Show.
Excellent. Excellent. Again, Randi-Lee, thank you for joining the King Connection podcast. And listening audience, thank you all for listening to another King Connection broadcast. I'm sorry, podcast. Forgive me for that. And it is a broadcast. But I want to wish everybody a blessed and productive weekend. And until next time, let's continue to keep building. Thank you, Randi-Lee.
Thank you.